Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Wait, Are These Guys Friends? Which, if you can believe it, this is our 20th released episode. We are almost old enough to drink. We are in our second decade because we only put out one a year. We've been putting out one a year for 20 years. It's been a long road. And with that, here's the decrepit old bones of Randy. Randy, how are you?
I broke my hip on the way here today, but other than that, we're in good shape. So no, I would say we're 80 away from syndication, but I guess technically podcasting is already syndicated. So
that's true. You know, that's a fine question, by the way. Did I say that my name is Mike, by the way? I just started diving into the show. My name is Mike. Hello. That's Randy. He already said hi. What is the deal with syndication in today's modern age? That's just an off-the-top topic that we have not prepared for, but you saying that, you hear about back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, like Star Trek, right? Only survived because it managed to get just enough episodes to stay syndicated, therefore it got profitable, therefore it was played for years on TV. It would have died in a gutter otherwise. What is the modern syndication? Is it getting a Netflix deal? Is my show was about to be
streaming
canceled.
Really? So
yeah.
It's just if you have the attention of any streaming service, you're essentially syndicated, right? Like, I mean, that's really what it is. Like, and if it's a for pay one like Netflix or Hulu or I guess Amazon Prime or something like that, you have made some sort of residual from it. But I mean, even I wonder how that works if like Freevee or something like that picks it up. You know, do you get paid syndicated residuals?
And I'm wondering too. And you wonder too, is like, did that matter more at the start of the streaming era when there was less options? Like now you can watch so much. Oh, I got picked up. No one's still watching my show because no one knows it exists buried on Netflix or anything to that regard. It's just a odd aside off the top, thinking about how I don't feel like you get, you're not going to get the fan letter writing campaign anymore because they don't care. I love Santa Clarita Diet. And if we had galvanized an entire base of fans to write letters to Netflix is going, we don't care. We're making our money. We don't care.
Especially the way it ended. It's like, or it stopped, I should say. It's like, oh, there was so much more to explore.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that show is off the top of the mind because I was debating trying to rewatch something this week, and I did rewatch the first 2 episodes with that, and it's still charming. I fell into other things, so that show's I think top of mind. But I could talk about some of the things, but let's leave with you. What else did you watch this week? What have you enjoyed?
So we talked about last week the Hulu/FX series Clipped, which is going into the Donald Sterling era of the Clippers, and when his mistress, whatever you want to call her, personal assistant, basically was taping him on her phone at all times, and he was saying some horrible, racist, sexist, awful things at all times, and it was
as
released.
You do. I mean, as you do. You.
As I do. Oh, great.
Specifically. No, I mean, sorry. As you do. No, please continue.
And it is going through, this is taking place in, I think, 2013, 2014, around then, when Doc Rivers comes to be the coach of the Clippers. And Lawrence Fishburne is playing Doc Rivers, the coach, and is awesome. It's just really, really good casting. And if you ever heard Doc Rivers talk, he was an announcer for a while in between his coaching gigs. He has this kind of gravelly, very distinct voice, and Fishburne hits it really well. So it's really, really cool to see that portrayal of him. And it's interesting because it just sort of continues to develop as, all of it comes out, and as she sells a couple of these to TMZ to release it. And it's interesting to think about how this storyline would have played if this wasn't in Los Angeles, because there's so much Hollywood to it. The mistress is just so interested in being essentially Kim Kardashian and to become Instagram famous and all this other type of stuff. Views herself as an entrepreneur just because, she's showing up on social media. And you wonder if Donald Sterling owned the Oklahoma City Thunder, if this would, it would.
You probably wouldn't have had
right.
her.
And would this still be a story? Would that come out? Would someone have taped all that? It was just an interesting idea. So to really show it as the Hollywood aspect of what it is, in addition, is really, really cool. And it's so far, there's been 3 episodes so far. It's really, really well done.
So I do want to watch it because we've talked about Winning Time. I loved Winning Time. This sounds like a real spiritual successor. I've heard that from more people than just you, that like you'll if you liked that, you'll like this.
Yep.
Here's my question. I'm on the Wikipedia. I'm looking at the cast. I see the main. I see the recurring. And then you have all these actors playing all these people, good-looking cast. But then in the middle of the recurring, it just says, recurring, LeVar Burton as himself. Not just a guest spot. LeVar Burton is in this playing LeVar Burton?
It's kind of great. Like, I think in real life, I think this is based on a real thing that Doc Rivers went to the same fancy sports club that LeVar Burton did. And they end up because what happens, and it's not a spoiler alert or anything, they're in a sauna. Like, Doc is sitting in a sauna. He likes his cleanse there. And it's in the first episode. And he sits down, he kind of closes his eyes, he opens it, another guy comes in, and he does like a double take, and he goes, LeVar Burton? LeVar Burton's just sitting in there with the sauna with him. And they have conversations throughout. Like, he's showed up at least twice, maybe 3 times, just about. It's interesting just because we know him as this great moral compass, just obviously for Star Trek, everyone loves Star Trek, but Reading Rainbow, if you go and way further back. So it's interesting. Like, I don't know if that's based in, I have to do more digging to see if that's based in reality, that Doc actually had these conversations with LeVar Burton, which would be even more amazing. But like, even if it's taken from, nothing, it's still kind of a cool random context. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of celebrity that we know of that interacted with Doc. But it even speaks more to just the Hollywood aspect of, like, things that take place in Los Angeles don't make sense sometimes because everyone is famous there. And so, and just walking past somebody on the street, you're like, holy shit, that's a movie star, and that's just how it works because that's where everybody lives. So it's a nice little added tinge. It's just always great to see LeVar Burton because he's awesome. Yes, that it is him as himself. That is not a typo or a.
To your point about LA, is I've only been a couple of times, and most of the times I've been for work, so I'm very locked into the area I'm in. But I was walking around one day. When I was just walking around, I actually had free time. Went and got a sandwich. And I went and got the sandwich, and as I'm leaving the sandwich place, I don't remember what it was, Craig Robinson just walked in to get a sandwich. Oh, that was Craig Robinson. All right, that's okay. There you go. And what's interesting is, to your point, is I didn't want to bother him because why would I want to be bothered on my day off? And then, and I think in that area, enough people are so used to that type of thing that no one else was bothering him either. You could tell people knew it was him because you get much like myself, everyone does a murmur, oh shit, look at that guy, look at that. But no one's going up and be like, Craig, tell me what sandwich you're getting.
Right. Why aren't you at Pizza Hut?
That's it, Craig, if you are listening to this, the year was 2014. If you could tell me what sandwich you got as you were walking around the LA Live facility in Los Angeles, I would love to know what sandwich you got. Thank you.
I never thought of it as much of a thing because all the trips that I had gone out to LA or Southern California was just to visit family until I was in my, early to mid 20s. Went out in my mid 20s. It was like the weekend of my birthday. And I went out for a week just because I had friends out there. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to LA on my own just to do something for a week. And the first night I stayed with my buddy who lived in West Hollywood. We went out to his local bar. Brian Doyle Murray bought us shots. It's like one of these things where I'm like, what is happening? Like,
that's so cool.
Just because he happened to be at that bar. And then 2 days later, my sister lives out in Los Angeles. I went out to dinner with her. I don't remember exactly where. And it was like Mina Suvari and somebody else, which doesn't a name that doesn't mean anything anymore. But in 2005 was still sort of American Pie was in everybody's head, and American Beauty, and
that's still those are recent enough for that to start.
Yeah, and in 2005 that was a thing. Like so, but and this was within 36 hours of being out there, and it was just like one of those things where you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is how LA is sometimes.
I guess it's not LA, but since you said it, I feel like I need to give you my 2 favorite celebrity interactions I've ever had.
Yes.
My first is very simple, and it's just because of how gruff and awkward it was, is Mike Ditka almost ran me over coming out of the bathroom. I was going in, he was coming out, and the door, he had no regard for who could have been on the other side of that door. Mike Ditka just went boom, and the door goes open, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, sorry, Chief, and he walked away. That was the entire interaction.
That's amazing.
I was like, all right. And then the other one, I was working at the Masters, the golf tournament. I believe it was the 2018 Masters. But I was walking around the course, and I had some time to kill. And I had been to the little concession area, got myself a lemonade and a pimento cheese sandwich, and I'm walking around and enjoying the day. And all of a sudden, this dude just like aggressively taps my shoulder. And I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? They have so many rules there, right? Like, what did I do? What's about to happen? And I turn around and it's Rob Riggle. And Rob Riggle had just aggressively tapped my shoulder. And I was like, hi, what's going on? But I didn't realize that, by the way, at first.
Yeah.
There was a realization of, I know this person.
Sure.
And I'm like, what's happening? I was like, yeah. And he goes, I am so thirsty. I have been walking around. Where did you get that drink? I need something to drink. And I'm like, down the hill to the right, there's a whole area. He went, thank you. Fantastic.
You know where I got it, Rob? At the fucking Catalina wine mixer. That's where I got it.
Well, as he starts to walk away, I go, hey, wait a minute. You're great. And he went, thanks. And he walked away and he got his
nice.
So yeah, there you go.
We can bounce back and forth. I got one more I have to follow up with because it's one of my favorite things. It's
I don't have any more. That's
one. Yeah. And it's because you and I have worked in television for a long time and have had cross paths based on certain events or things we worked at that we just have seen or been close to or whatever. But this was one that was an actual interaction. It was really fun. I was doing camera for a college football game that was at Army at West Point, which was cool in itself, just to go to West Point to see it, which is awesome. If anyone gets the opportunity to go see it, it's incredible up in the hills in upstate New York. They were playing Rutgers. This was a year that Rutgers was actually like pretty good at football, which is not often, but they had kind of captured the New York area because, Rutgers is in New Jersey. I believe he either went there or was a big supporter of the team, but James Gandolfini was at the game. And so during halftime, my job for the game was basically just to capture the student section of Army. So like all the cadets, that were just excited for the football game. And I just had to film them for cutaways and stuff like that. That was my role as the camera person. And then in between at halftime, I was supposed to run over and get the band. So I'm kind of cutting across, not necessarily the field, but I'm running by and James Gandolfini was on the field. He had done something at halftime and he's walking back. And I'm thinking to myself, don't say Sopranos, don't say Sopranos, don't say Sopranos. And like I had to come up with something that wouldn't just be like, I love you in the Sopranos, because obviously I love you in the Sopranos. So I stopped and I go, Mr. Gandolfini, I just want to say I loved you in Get Shorty. And he like turned my way. I think he was expecting me to say something about Sopranos, and he stopped. And then he like cocked his head and he like smiled and went, that's good, kid. That's good. And I was like, yes, that is so great. I have won. Like it just, awesome feeling. Just, that was such a fun interaction.
I love that he probably clocked you from a mile away, seeing you trying to figure out what to say too.
Yeah,
right? Like
probably.
the way that somebody was, yeah. That's fantastic.
It was great. So much fun. So I wish I got a chance to talk to him because by all accounts, a great individual human being too. We can move on, but I love that story. It's just a fun one to tell. So.
And that's great, man. And I love The Sopranos. That's fantastic. It's interesting because
goes without saying,
we don't do individual TV episode reviews like we used to. Like we did the Simpsons ones recently. We had talked about trying to do them regularly. And my thought is, could we ever do one of those for, how do you, like, I love The Sopranos, but I feel like you can't review that show in a void. You can't pick an episode, can you? Or can you? Like, could we just be like, let's talk about this episode of The Sopranos for no reason other than we want to? But then you have to have the context and the series and this, and it's a difficult thing to do. I'm not saying we couldn't somehow, but if you think of a way, let me know, because I do love that show. And I was a late bloomer to that show, and I mean real late bloomer. Mm-hmm. That was one of my lockdown COVID shows that I discovered because I had always heard good things, but it was just, I was never in an era when it was happening where I could have watched it. And then years later, I just was like, well, I missed the boat on that. When we were locked down and had nothing else to do and nowhere else to go, I thought, this is it. I'm committing and I'm watching this fucking show. And I have watched it more than once since that. I have watched it a couple of times now. It is such a good show.
Yeah.
I've been living in I posted something on my socials recently about this. I went knee deep into, I don't know, it's tough for me to ask this because you have a family. So you probably don't have some of the creative, like some of the nerdy cycles I have. You never know. But there will be times where I will not play a video game for months, maybe even close to a year, ranges where I won't touch my systems, I won't do anything. And then I will get hooked into something and it will consume me. It's like the full, just like, I want to do nothing but play this. And that's why I haven't watched as much the last few weeks. I was curious if that would. Have you ever had that type of thing, or was that not as not a big game, or maybe that doesn't really happen? I don't know.
It depends. Like, it also depends too on like what my son is getting into. So he had a Mario Kart phase where it's just like that's all he wanted to play on. He has a Switch, and so it just
Nice.
and we play that all the time, or Super Smash Brothers or something like that. I do know that we don't currently have a PS5 or anything else that's going to come out with, but I was obsessed with the college football game, NCAA football. So now that EA is coming back out with that, I'm sure when that comes out, I'm going to play that a million times and just have to deal with anything else around the house and not getting done.
A mutual friend of ours, Alex, and his wife, they just got their first PS5 because Alex is going to want to play GTA next year when it comes out, but also he wants that EA game. And so that's what pushed them over was to get that game, is he wants to play that. And so
it's what makes it so fun is that you don't have to just be a sports fan, because you can sort of get involved in the recruiting process and you're building a program. And so it's not just the actual play of on the field. There's other stuff to it. That's a lot of fun.
That's the type of stuff I love. I love a GM mode in any game. So the WWE games just recently started reintroducing them back in over the last 2 years, and they had been popular in the 2000s, but the WWE games famously got very bad for a while, to the point where they took a year off. It was so bad. While fan outcry was like, please stop doing this. You just released one of the worst games ever made. If you've not looked up the sordid tale of WWE 2K20, holy shit. That game was so bad and was received so bad, they skipped 2021. They just didn't do one. They're like, we're going back to the drawing board. And listen, they listened. They've really retooled. But one of the things they've done over the last couple of years is bring back GM mode in that game. And I don't wrestle when I play 2K24. I don't play matches. I book cards and I manage shows, and it's just more fun to me that way. It's
Do you get to pick? You pick the result when you book the match, or
that's one of the issues with GM mode in this is no, they try to keep kayfabe where you book the match. It's like, well, let's see who wins. It's like, motherfucker, I know who I want to win. I'm trying to tell a story. You can like buy cards to force someone. It's like, come on. Well, let's transition. We have one unique topic, unless there's anything else you'd like to talk about for media for the week. We have one
different turns already, so
where I can't tell you how I got on this, and it's always been in the back of my mind. This isn't an original thought I've had. People talk about this era. You think about things where suddenly a movie is being made, and then there's another one of that movie being made. You think of your 90s, you think of Deep Impact and Armageddon, right? Or you think of Volcano and Dante's Peak. And these types of things happen throughout the years. There is this period of time I'm mildly obsessed with figuring out, how did it happen? Why did it happen? And I'm sure it's just greed. But the body swap comedy era of the 80s. Not the body swap comedy era of the mid-2000s. We're not just talking about the original Freaky Friday, which was in the 70s. I'm talking about a 3-year period where Hollywood looked at all their creatives and went, we want body swap movies, and we want them now. We need them now. And I wanted to look at essentially 4 films. We'll touch on the original Freaky Friday. We have a couple things that we're going to mention otherwise, but in my mind, these are 4 films. These are the movie 18 Again, Vice Versa, Dream a Little Dream, and Like Father, Like Son. So it's the general concept of which is every one of those, especially because it's the 80s and sexism, a father and a son switch places, except for 18 Again, where a grandfather and a son switch places. Oh, no, you're right.
Dream a Little Dream is just, but still, they're all body swap related. But yeah, so 2 of them are father and son, and then...
I was thinking that the third one was you. I had mentioned this to Randy before recording, and I knew this going in. I lost it in my intro. Dream of a Little Dream is the only one I haven't seen. So I forgot about it in my intro. Because in my mind, it was old man and young man switch places. I forgot that Dream a Little Dream exists.
Which it is, sort of, so.
Yeah, we're going to have to get into all that. It's very confusing.
It's the body switch scenarios are worth going into, because they are... It is an incredulous premise on its own, but when they get into how they got there, it goes into another realm. It's You always have to remember that cocaine was prevalent in writers' rooms in the 1980s. So,
amen to that. Now, I'm looking up. I just want to double check. So, Like Father, Like Son is the first one, 1987. Yep. And I said we were going to touch on Freaky Friday first, though. And that's just the concept of all of these movies are ripping off Freaky Friday.
Yep.
And we're assuming you know what Freaky Friday is, be it the original in the 70s with Jodie Foster or the remake in the 2000s with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis. Then Like Father, Like Son was kind of the big gender. People get upset about gender swaps. This was the Freaky Friday gender swap, the original, 1987. Mm-hmm. It's Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron. And let me tell you, as silly as that sounds, I think in 1987, those names meant something. Dudley Moore was admittedly on a downswing, but Kirk Cameron was on an upswing. And so they met in the middle to make Like Father, Like Son, which frankly grossed $35 million at the box office. Adjusted, that's $94 million at the box office. Or that's pretty nuts. I got to look up the budget for it.
Basically a block. Wow.
Yes. It had a $10 million budget and grossed $34 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's $94 million.
That blows me away. Oh, my God.
And also, as we were discussing, we think this it's not the best of them. It might be the worst of them, although I think 18 again is maybe worse.
I don't know, man. This is pretty bad.
So let's play. I wanted to play the trailer for each of these.
Yeah.
Not just to give you the concept, but because I saw a through line where most of these trailers are kind of identical. So here we go. This is the trailer, 1987's Like Father, Like Son.
Dr. Jack Hammond had one of the most brilliant minds in the medical community until he and his son...
Hi.
exchanged minds.
Chris? Dad? There's no such thing as a brain transference.
Now, the doctor...
See ya.
...is back in high school.
It's really not cool to scam on your own son's date.
The main bronchi and its branches are evenly distributed about the circumference of the tube.
Riveting.
And his son...
Hi, Bob.
Whoa! I have a martini.
Want that on the rocks?
No, in a glass is fine.
...is a virgin surgeon.
Just take off all our clothes and just go at it. Rubbing and feeling.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah! You've been out all night in my body. You are grounded for the rest of your life.
Brain transfers is a very inexact science, as you might well imagine.
Don't worry, Mr. Racine. They're not gonna let you die. Are we, guys?
No.
God, this is great! I love it!
You go right now and do whatever the hell you have to do to get us out of this thing.
I can't stabilize him. He's in feed test.
I'm not Dr. Hammond.
Going into feed test. Department 1.
What?
Hit him, Dr. Hammond. Hit him.
Dudley Moore. Kirk Cameron. Like father, like son.
First thing I want to say is that the trailer does a really good job of portraying that as sort of like a charming screwball comedy. Like, yes. I think the trailer is done a lot better than the movie, because the movie is a hodgepodge of a bunch of shit.
Which makes sense, because Dudley Moore was known as a charming British screwball comedian, Arthur. That was his vibe. You could tell what they were going. And also, Kirk Cameron was coming off on Growing Pains.
Yeah.
And they featured him just enough, doing just enough acting to be like, oh, that's the kid from the show. So, like, it was a good trailer.
And it seems to be the
also,
same.
Also, Sean Astin is all over it.
Right?
Who doesn't love Sean Astin? He's the third guy. The guy who every time you hear someone go, well, this is not a brain transference, guys. That's Sean Astin every time. Every time that's Sean Astin.
So, and you think about Freaky Friday, that one that started it all. It has a pretty, I don't want to say simplistic idea to how they swap bodies. But on Friday the 13th, pretty, historically a superstitious day, they both say, I just want to be, it's some variation of, I just wish I had someone else's life. I wish I had the other's life. They both say that somehow miraculously at the same time on Friday the 13th at different places. Swap. Okay, cool. That has some sort of idea to it. Like Father, Like Son starts with, as you mentioned, as we saw in the trailer, Kirk Cameron's character, a high school senior. His dad, Jack Dudley Moore, is a surgeon. So Chris has a friend named Trigger, Sean Astin, as you mentioned, whose Uncle Earl was bitten by a snake and then taken care of by a Native American medicine man who fixed it by giving him brain transference serum. How that helps you a snake bite on your leg, I have no idea. But so somehow Trigger has come into, he has some brain transference serum, and to prove that it works, he tries it out on Kirk Cameron's character's dog and cat. And then we saw that in the trailer that the cat barks, or was it the cat barks, the dog? I forget.
Yeah,
I think, the cat barks. Oh God, the horror. So he also keeps this transference serum in a Tabasco bottle. So, and then somehow they forget about the Tabasco bottle and leave it out. The housekeeper finds the Tabasco bottle and puts it in the cupboard.
Which she's doing her job. She doesn't fucking know.
So Jack is making a Bloody Mary. I mean, Tabasco for your Bloody Mary. No, that's brain transference serum you're putting in your Bloody Mary. So, but we're not there yet. The serum has to work after you ingest it. The next person that looks you in the eyes, you swap bodies with.
It could have been anybody.
That's how brain transference serum works. So just as he's having this Bloody Mary, Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron's characters are arguing over a C that Kirk Cameron got in school, and all of the sudden, we're body switched and we're off and running.
Which, by the way, I would like to know
who wrote that. Like, that takes forever to get to.
I would like to know. It has 3 credited writers: Bloom, David Hoselton, who's the only one who has a Wikipedia link.
Yep.
And if you click on that, he wrote what? He is best known for his work on the television series House and the animated films Over the Hedge and Brother Bear. So,
wow.
Maybe that's, well, the House makes sense. I mean, that's practically medicine. And then here's the one that gives me pause. The final credited writer is Leo Cameron. Is that a little nepo? There's nothing malicious about the Cameron name. That's that guy's writing partner. They wrote this movie together. Oh, no fucking way. They wrote that piece of shit too? Oh my God. Sorry.
Go on.
I got really excited. They wrote together the failed 1997 Justice League TV movie that was a backdoor pilot to try to do a Justice League show in 1997. It is terrible. You can only find it bootleg. It is on YouTube now. I at one point owned a DVD that had a bootleg copy of the Fantastic Four movie that was never released, the Justice League movie that was never released, and the shitty 90s Captain America movie that was unfortunately released.
Right, yes.
But they wrote that movie. They wrote like Father Like Son. They wrote all these people that wrote like Father Like Son, their next big movie they wrote wasn't until 1995. They wrote First Night, the one where Sean Connery is King Arthur.
Right. Then
they immediately went from that to writing the Justice League TV movie. But it's okay because they wrote Catch Me If You Can. Oh, no, not that Catch Me If You Can. The 1998 TV movie about a 12-year-old boy with an attitude who witnessed a mob killing, and a down-on-his-luck cop has to protect him, played by Tim Matheson from National Lampoon.
Did we mention this movie made $90 million adjusted?
In adjusted dollars.
Wow.
But you know what this comes down to? We've talked about creators you hate and how if you have one genuine hit, you can ride that hit on mediocrity and failure for the rest of your life because you can stand in a resume and say, no, I made money once. And they made their money right at the top and they just rode that shit.
Yeah, you wonder. This was the era of development deals too. So like, all right, we'll sign you to a 4-picture deal, and we don't care if it sits on the shelf. We'll pay you whatever per thing that you write. Man, that's
yes. So
wow.
I like Dudley Moore. I'm not saying in this. I mean, as a concept, I liked Dudley Moore in the 80s. He didn't have a lot of hits after Arthur, but I remember Santa Claus the movie as a kid, and I have really sentimental attachment to that. I don't remember if it's good. I just remember loving him in it.
It's not that long after that, too, so he had a little cachet from it. He also narrated Milo and Otis, which was a big kids movie.
Yes.
So
yep. And he was always just very pleasant on screen, even when he was being unpleasant. That said, the reviews were not great. The film received negative reviews, particularly from Siskel and Ebert.
Oh, I love
called
this.
Called it one of the most desperately bad comedies I've ever seen. But Siskel showed even more derision and hatred towards the film, calling it a cheap marketing decision masquerading as a comedy. Leonard Maltin agreed, adding that it was a bomb, and Dudley Moore's mugging talents get major work out in a Hall of Fame embarrassment. However, Karen James of the New York Times wrote that Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron are so clever and charming as a mismatched pair that they turn a potential dud into a sweetly engaging film. And it never fulfills the potential of being a shrewd satire of cross-generational marriages. That said, it debuted at number 2 for the weekend behind Fatal Attraction. And Fatal Attraction was a
huge,
massive hit. So to come in number 2 behind that is fine. It was released on VHS in 1988, and in an era when things were not always stayed in print, it was reprinted and re-released on VHS in 1991 because it was still selling. So, hell of a thing. And listen, you can tell we're talking about the box office, right? It made its money. It made, in adjusted dollars, almost $100 million. And that, of course, is going to be like, a movie studio is going to look at that and go, so we can make some of those, right? We can do everything that we've talked about, movies that are reactionary, right? What movies are a reaction to another movie? You talk about some of those shitty 90s superhero movies. Those are a reaction to 1989's Batman. They weren't good. They were movies. They were companies going, what can we do?
Right.
Well, what we can do then are the movies Vice Versa and 18 Again, which both came out in 1988. I want to see which one came out first and which one really got to capitalize on that.
I think it was Like Father, Like Son was the first one.
No, that's what I'm saying. Which got to capitalize on Like Father, Like Son success.
Oh,
Who came out next?
Oh,
Like
I see.
Father, Like Son came out October 2nd. Also, by the way, I'm saying this as a direct reaction. Looking at these release dates, that unless they fast-tracked these productions, these were all in production at the same
It's like
time.
4 months apart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Like Father, Like Son came out in October 1987. 18 Again came out in April 1988. And Vice Versa came out in March 1988.
Yeah.
Good God, you had a month between those two. That's disgusting. That's, if you want to talk about the real Deep Impact Armageddon or real Volcano, I keep forgetting what the other one was called. What's the non-Volcano movie?
Deep Impact?
No, Deep Impact.
Dante's Peak. You said it.
Dante's Peak, yes.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting. So, but those were a month apart, and this is that same scenario. My goodness. Interesting. Sorry, real quick. Hang on now. I'm learning a lot. Everything's a ripoff of the novel Vice Versa, published in 1882, where a magic stone from India has a father and son switch places, living each other's lives and giving each other a better understanding of each other. I didn't realize this until right now. I was just focused on the movies. Fuck you, Freaky Friday. Also, Vice Versa intrigues me because it's the last time a movie has had the premise under the title Vice Versa. This comes after a similar thing where I am obsessed with the movie Brewster's Millions, which came out in the mid-'80s with Richard Pryor. The movie's fine. What I'm obsessed about it regarding is that for every decade of the existence of cinema, we put out a movie called Brewster's Millions until the one in the 80s where everyone says, well, you can't remake that. That's Brewster's Millions. Vice Versa had film adaptations in 1916, 1937, and 1948. And then again in the 80s. Fascinating. So anyway, let's take a listen. Let's listen to why maybe this trailer will say why we think this one is better than Like Father, Like Son. You know?
Stop dumping on me, Dad.
I've been up since 6 and I have a very tough day ahead.
I wish I could change places with you.
Well, I wish I could too.
Inside Marshall Seymour, successful businessman, divorced father, and self-styled workaholic, beats the heart of a little boy. Because Marshall Seymour is about to become his 11-year-old son, Charlie.
Awesome!
And vice versa.
Maybe this happened all over America.
What's gonna happen to you? You're 6'2" with the brain of an 11-year-old.
Charlie may be getting to that age.
He's losing it.
think he has a crush on me?
No way! You never told me you had to see my homeroom teacher.
You never told me what hockey practice. I'm in the tub, do you mind? This is the woman I couldn't live with as a husband. And now I'm gonna be her son.
I'll do anything you want, Sam.
It's not what I want. It's what we want as a unit.
She's worried about your unit, Dad.
It's a Freudian nightmare.
Judge Reinhold,
Are you all right?
Do I look all right?
Fred Savage,
I don't suppose you have any Grey Poupon.
vice versa.
What if we're stuck like this?
Oh my God. I have to go through puberty again.
I would like to note that this one makes sense because what you don't see in the trailer is the body swap isn't just mind. It's literally you see their bodies morph into one another. Fred Savage grows, Judge Reinhold shrinks, they become one another. That, they put that in there. The brain transference. I need to dial back to this for a second because this is a thought I wanted to have on Like Father, Like Son. In theory, that means that the brain patterns and how he would act and talk and live from Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron and vice versa. See what I did there. Why doesn't Kirk Cameron then have an English accent, and why doesn't Dudley Moore then speak like an American? And also, why, I guess I can understand then Kirk Cameron was his son and grew up in America, he wouldn't have an accent. But if Dudley Moore does have the accent and their brains switched, shouldn't Kirk Cameron have an accent?
Technically, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess unless you're saying that the brain still, unless you were doing his thoughts in an English accent, and then because his vocal cords physically, right? So the reverb, but the way that a voice actually works, right?
Well, yeah, but isn't that all mental in how you're trained to speak?
Because I guess that's how you mimic somebody, right? You think about how something sounds.
I'm not going to do a good accent, but I'm hello, Randy. How are you? Hello, Randy. Hello. What's all this then? Oh my God! Our boys are with Consworth in the Butler Lounge. Randy, it's Mike. Hello. Oh no, my boys where's Consworth?
Mate,
got me.
Ready for the big race then? Are we?
Yeah.
And
that's my point. Is that's not physical. That's mental. He talks the way he knows how to talk, and that's how he physically talks. He physically talks because that's mentally how he talks. I
have visions of they tried this with Kirk Cameron, and he would just try a British accent. They're like, no, we're not doing that.
Okay. Dialing back to vice versa, though. I personally, just looking at the trailer, it's weird to me that it did so badly compared to the other one, because that trailer to me even looks better.
It's good. It's just good casting. It's very conceivable that Fred Savage can play that older curmudgeonly, and Judge Reinhold completely reverts back into that childlike. That those two are really good cast, I think.
And the aspect of and I know it's played for laughs, but the aspect of the divorced family and the kid who's now the dad has to go be with the ex-wife as the kid, and that's just concepts that Father Like Son didn't explore. Tell me, how this time, Randy, did they swap them bodies?
So comparatively, Vice Versa has a lot more basic body swap concept. Jumps off of the point, actually, of the novel that you described from the late 1800s, where it's actually a skull that is discovered in Thailand. An art thief essentially is trying to smuggle it out of the country, but places it in Judge Reinhold's things. And so all of a sudden they have this ornate Thai skull.
And you may wonder, how did he get this? He is in charge of a department store in Chicago, buying exotic items and taking things in.
Yep. So essentially, they're just arguing with each other. Fred Savage, who plays the son, has to stay with him because Fred Savage's mom and stepfather are going on a trip, I believe. They just start arguing with each other somehow while they're holding the skull. And then, magically, because the skull has magic powers, they've switched.
Part of the charm of this one has a little more drive in it, because it's not just, we got to figure out the brain serum. It's the skull is stolen. The skull is taken from them. They have to work to get it back. So why wouldn't you just switch back immediately? Well, because they can't. That's part of the charm of this. We are stuck here. We know exactly what we need to do to fix this. We want to fix this. it adds a little bit more, I don't know, plausibility to this insane thing that they're like, okay, well, fuck, we can get this. We just gotta, it adds a little more urgency, a little more drive. And also the actors are more charming. It's mid 80s, late 80s, but it's Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage in the 80s. That's peak Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage. When else do you want them? That's when you care about them. That's when you want to deal with them. Also, it has Richard Kind in it, and James Hong, and Susie Kurtz. And according to this, Jane Lynch, which I don't remember, but how about that?
I think it helps too that it's a little bit more of a drastic difference in age. I mean, I think it's still a little weird, and we'll see it in 18 again, where it's a high school senior or a late teens, whereas I think Fred Savage is supposed to be 11 in this.
Yeah.
And that much of a difference between what I think of being an adult is, or the cool things that I can do, versus an actual adult, I think is better. I think it's shown, and because I put in my notes when Judge Reinhold and his girlfriend, but as Fred Savage, I guess Fred Savage inside of Judge Reinhold, however you want to say that. I shouldn't say it that way. They really enjoy the heavy metal concert, which, boy, what an 80s thing that was. It's like, let's go on a date to a heavy metal concert. Yay, Malice. I can't wait to go see them. But the part there that Judge Reinhold is really kind of showcasing as if an 11-year-old got to go out to a heavy metal concert. Like, it looks very much that, like, and so it was a good way to kind of show off that type of dynamic, to be like, I'm enjoying being an adult, or the freeing nature of everything that I want to do as an 11-year-old, but I can't.
When you're a teenager and you're a high schooler, you're like, there's going to be a ironic detachment aspect to everything that's happening. He's excited. He's a kid. He's excited to be there. It's the way it is. It's good. So looking at Vice Versa, obviously Siskel and Ebert had nothing but fucking pure vitriol for Like Father, Like Son.
Yep.
However, I would like to read the Roger Ebert review from the Chicago Sun-Times of Vice Versa. Who would have guessed it? Who would have been able to predict that the plot of one of last year's worst movies could produce one of this year's most endearing comedies? Here at last is proof that the right actors can make anything funny, or perhaps it is proof that the wrong actors can't. The name of the movie is Vice Versa, and when they made this movie last year, it was called Like Father, Like Son. The screenplays for the two movies are amazingly similar, though a coincidence, but what a difference in movies this is. I must admit, with a lagging step and a heavy heart going to see Vice Versa at the sneak preview. I had sincerely disliked Like Father, Like Son. Now here's Vice Versa, which stars Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage in a story of a father and son whose minds also magically enter each other's bodies and make them trade identities. If the material was bad and it was fresh, how could it be good when it's familiar? My state of mind lasted for perhaps the first 5 minutes of this movie. I was then laughing too hard to care. I suppose film students of the future will want to analyze the differences between these treatments of material to see how Reinhold and Savage, director Brian Gilbert, and writers Clement and Frenard got it right when this 1987 team got it all wrong. I think perhaps maybe it's just a matter of style. Isn't that amazing?
I know he's delighted. That's a bit of an overstatement, but hey, you do you, Raj.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Which, and obviously then they went on to love Big, I believe. So,
well,
I wanted to know, we had mentioned at a certain point we were going to talk about Big, about how I think it came out in the wake of some of this stuff and was released in the era, but is not of this. It came out in 1988 as well.
No.
But it is obviously a cut above. I'm sure it still came out of a film company going, what do we have that this? The catch is you got more creative people involved. It shows what can happen when you can take a tired concept or a tired idea and put truly creative people onto it, what can still come of it. That's what you can get. It's somebody who has talent, went to James L. Brooks, Penny Marshall, Barry Sonnenfeld, Tom Hanks, and went, we want to do a kid as an adult, but we want to do it well. Here's some money. Do what you do. You know, it's a different scenario. By the way, it is a footnote in its Wikipedia, Biggs. At the time of the film's release, Big was a part of a series of twin films featuring an age-changing plot produced during the late 80s, and it lists the films that we're talking about. And I would like to note that I disagree with that based on what we just said. It says age-changing plot to try to lump it into this. That's the only way Big is lumped into this. It is an age-changing plot, but that's not what happens in all the other ones. They're body swap plots.
Right.
It's interesting to me to look at. So this one came out in March of 88. 18 Again came out in April of 88. And if you're going to at least, for Society, count Big as part of this sweep, that came out in June of 88. And Big, obviously, cultural phenomenon, massive hit, Oscar winner. Everybody still talks about it. This movie that started the run of films in 1988 had a shooting budget of $10 million, and it only grossed, for the time, $13.5 million. It did not do well. It adjusted box office $35 million, but that's not, you're not wanting that. That does not do well. People probably saw the rest of the summer, this glut of body-aged comedy movies, like, oh no, oh, we're going to be fucked. We'll move on to the trailer for 18 Again, starring George Burns. And I'm mildly hyper-focused on the career and concept of George Burns. I have so many thoughts. But we'll watch the trailer first.
George Burns is Jack Watson, ladies' man.
Do you think she's a little too young for you?
Look, I'd go out with women my age, but there are no women my age.
And birthday boy.
I wish I could do it again because I had that much fun.
But this year, he's celebrating
Grandpa!
in his grandson David's body.
Are you all right?
Fine.
What the hell happened to my voice?
Do you believe that a person can go from one body to another? Charlie, I got my wish. I'm 18 again.
He thinks like George Burns.
Maybe you'd rather be hang gliding or something.
What, with my arthritis?
But he looks a lot younger.
Got any decent cognac in this place?
Now he's going back to school.
Do you have a problem?
Do you realize the last time I saw a naked lady?
Last Thursday.
Meeting the student body.
But you said you didn't want to dance.
And having the time of his life.
Okay, my spin is a little off.
The second time around.
Well, you're honest at least.
What am I doing? I'm cheating on my own grandson.
You had it all. And now you really have it all.
George Burns,
Come back. I can't wait.
Do you mind if I finish this cigar?
Charlie Slatter.
Anything else you want to know, Professor? Don't hesitate to ask.
18 Again.
I would like to note that I fucking can't stand this movie. I haven't watched these. I haven't seen Dream a Little Dream.
That trailer pretty much sells that as well. It looks annoying.
So the thing is George Burns was a very funny man, and and I'm not just talking about, like, I don't know his career well in the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? I know what George Burns was in the 80s when I was a kid, into the early 90s when I was a kid. And he was a funny old man who said dirty things, but also had a touch of old Hollywood to him. You knew he'd been around. He told stories, sang a song. He was dirty in some of his humor, but classy as a human was the vibe you got for George Burns, right? He was a beloved institution. He lived till he was 100. He was 81, I think, at this time, legitimately, right? He would go for, no, not quite, whatever. You get what I'm saying. He would go for a while. He lived to the mid-90s when he hit 100. So the catch is he had a career resurgence in the 80s and late 70s off of how charming he was, right?
Yeah.
People like to see him do things. The movie Oh God with John Denver, massive fucking hit. And also a fun movie even today. A little antiquated, but a fun movie, massive hit. This movie
made 3 of them, I think.
Yes, with decreasing quality, to be fair.
Yeah.
But this movie is sold on the back of George Burns. If you watch this movie, he's barely in it. It's this douchebag kid doing a George Burns impression. And every now and again, to try to liven things up, his internal monologue is George Burns' voice.
Yep.
So, like, it's deeply terrible. And I'm obsessed a little bit with the career of Charlie Slattery, who is one of my least favorite 80s actors. Have you looked at his IMDb by
I
chance?
did. I
It
did
is.
most of the notes. So it's like you and I kind of go through. We make notes on things, doing our research. Most of my notes from 18 Again are about him. So I'll be curious to see. We probably have saw a lot of similar stuff on. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mainly just want to say, because I can't remember. I've talked about this show enough in my life. The concept of it, the fascination with it, the fact that he is the TV Ferris Bueller. Did we talk about that show here? Or have we
No,
talked
but it's
about
in my
that?
notes. Yeah.
So that show came up against the show Parker Lewis Can't Lose
Mhm.
in the wake of the movie Ferris Bueller. And Parker Lewis is a great, creative, fun Fox
Love it.
creation.
Love it.
Ferris Bueller is deeply terrible, and it opens, the TV show Ferris Bueller opens with his knockoff version saying the movie was fake and like chainsawing a stand-up of Matthew Broderick.
Yep.
And it is terrible. He went, and then he was in the last Police Academy movie. So
okay. I
Mission
missed
to
that
Mo-
part in my research.
Mission to Moscow in 1994. Other than that, he became a voice actor, and not like a voice actor where it's like, he's the lead voice actor. He became Apocalypse Thug in Spider-Man 3, the video game. He became, where is it? Tony Trooper 3 in Evil Conquer. Like, he's working, but the man tried. He had his moment, and it did not work out. Although, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm sure Grandma's ever loved him. He was apparently the second lead on Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke in the 90s, 95 to 2001. Which
I didn't watch it either, but it's.
I did not watch that show, but he did 137 episodes
Okay.
as Dr.
So he's
Jesse
doing fine.
Travis. Well, that was admittedly 25 years ago for 6 years.
I'm sure Diagnosis Murder, I'm sure ran in syndication. So
Yeah. You know what? Good for you, Charlie Schlatter.
Yeah.
But
So-
we've talked about, real quick, last thing. We have talked about actors I think they tried to make happen. And in the late 80s and early 90s, I felt like they tried to make him happen, and it didn't happen. So anyway, I have some more thoughts on the movie and some other things, but please continue. How did they body swap in this one, Randy?
This one's pretty straightforward, for lack of a better term. They don't even really show it. I mean, they say during the party that it's essentially George Burns kind of wishing that he would be back to another point. They're sort of talking about it in the car, and then the car crash happens, and they wake up and they're swapped. Like their souls switch essentially at the hospital. They don't even really show it. They just kind of explain it by him waking up as Charlie Schlatter, but you hear George Burns' voice, and so that's really the only way that really happens. And then George Burns stays in a coma for the rest of the movie, which is kind of wild. But it real quick, just to get him out of the way, and then we'll get back to the actual movie. It's my Charlie Schlatter notes. So Ferris Bueller, I love Parker Lewis Can't Lose, so I thought maybe like Ferris Bueller might be something that would be interesting. And if you remember, it debuted at the same time Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did. So
No, I didn't realize that.
It was the back-to-back. So Fresh Prince was on at 8, and then Ferris Bueller was on at 8:30.
That's why we talked about it. We did it in the Must See TV breakdown, didn't we? Yes.
And so I had, at the time, whatever, what was that? I don't remember what time that young me, whatever, preteen me, was so sure that Ferris Bueller was going to be the show that was going to blow up of the two. Great take, Randy.
Wait, are you talking about between this and Parker Lewis, or this and Fresh Prince?
This and Fresh Prince.
Oh my
I
God,
could not have
Randall.
been more wrong.
My goodness.
When that was the case.
Yeah, my gosh.
And then Ferris Bueller, of course, the other thing known for that TV show is that Jennifer Aniston is in it playing the sister. And apparently they dated during the course of the show. Again, good job, Charlie Schlatter. So,
well, that has a lot to do with 18. And no, I'm just kidding.
yeah, right. One more. I got one more.
Oh, dear God. All right. Sorry. You love your Charlie Schlatter.
I love because do you know that in his voice actor later in life, his second part of his career, he was originally cast as the voice of Philip J. Fry in Futurama.
Oh, I didn't know that. I missed that. That's amazing. And that's thank goodness that didn't happen, because we got Billy West, who is just amazing.
Exactly. Some sort of casting change along the way, but he was originally supposed to be the voice of it, which I thought was fascinating.
Which I could see that. He has a very normal sounding voice. He was also the original voice of the Wally West Flash in the DC animated universe, and they kicked him out for Michael Rosenbaum, who was amazing and did infinitely better.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, the premise, the whole rest of the movie is like you said, it's just him doing a George Burns impersonation. talking to his friends, and then it's like, oh wait, I would do this normal thing as a weaker 80-year-old man, but you saw in the trailer where they're playing bocce, I think, and he throws the bocce ball like 400 times as farther than normal. But
and really the issue with the movie is it could have been a fun movie, but he's a more charismatic actor, could maybe have even pulled this off and gotten past the point that you don't have George Burns. He's not enjoyable to watch. He's smug. It's not that he's a fun kid pretending to be an 80-year-old man or an 80-year-old man. He's smug. He is, when you watch him, I want to deck him. He is annoying. And it's the same reason his Ferris Bueller show didn't work off. They try to act like he's a cool, hip teen doing cool guy things, and he's a cool guy. He comes across as smug and unlikable in everything that he's doing. That he's doing. And it's just awful.
The only thing that I was trying to think of is if they tried to make, and I guess I had it wrong. They remade it as 17 again, the one with Zac Efron and Matthew Perry. But it's
probably because they didn't want this stink on it.
Yeah,
they don't want people googling that.
So, and then the difference, obviously, Matthew Perry was 40 or whatever. So like it wasn't.
It's a slightly different. Yeah, and also there you had Zac Efron, who's likable.
Yeah. So exactly. but one of the big
although to tie it all together from the start of our celebrity stories, who made the spirit transformation possible in that movie? Brian Doyle Murray.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. But
there you go.
There's a scene where he's able to wow his history professor because he's talking about, I think, the Korean War and World War II, right? And meeting Harry Truman. And I was trying to think of, like, in this day and age, like what that would be, like if someone was in a history class and they could wow their history professor to be like, would he talk about meeting like Reagan and the wild times, or like the 1980 U.S. Olympic team? I think what's the what would be the same thing for that? That's just my own mindset notes, but
no,
please continue.
No, just a deeply terrible film with, and the thing is the 5 minutes George Burns is on the screen, best part of the movie because he's entertaining and he's George Burns. So it's what he is and who he does. So, and
when did this come out? 88.
88. Yes,
so he was like 90 when he made this.
Yeah, he was older than the 81 that they're saying for the gimmick. So, and the song "I Wish I Was 18 Again" was performed by Burns and recorded as part of his career resurgence when he was doing his late 70s, early 80s run. And it actually kind of charted. And it was part of the gimmick of this kind old man wishing. And so this movie is actually a little bit based off the fact that he had a genuine hit with a song saying he wishes he was 18 again several years earlier. I'm sure somebody thought of that in the height of the body swap pitches. And they're like, wait a minute, I got the best idea. This is genius, you guys. Now, though, Randy, we have reached the point where we have to ask, what did Roger Ebert think of 18 Again? He hated Like Father, Like Son, right? Roger Ebert adored Vice Versa. We're not getting Siskel and Ebert here. We're only able to pull from the Roger Ebert Chicago Sun-Times reviews for what I'm finding. So now let's look at the third one. We hated 18 Again. We also liked I'm sorry. Good God, no. We also liked Vice Versa more than Like Father, Like Son. So far, we're trending right with Roger Ebert. Will we continue that here? Oh, yes, we will. Roger Ebert gave the film 1 out of 4 stars. He called Vice Versa the best of the 3 so far. The whole project seems to have been enveloped in a miasma of good intentions and heartwarming sentiments. There's no edge, no bite, none of the inspired body language that made Vice Versa so good regarding 18 Again. The movie makes no attempt to imagine what it would be like to inhabit another body. It just springs the gimmick on us and starts unreeling its sitcom plot. Burns is, of course, a beloved institution, and any opportunity to see him is welcome, but he is not given anything to do in the movie, and what he is given to do, he doesn't do much with. No real effort has been made to find any differences between Burns and the character he plays. And that's what we're saying. We are Roger Ebert today.
I love that phrase, starts unreeling its sitcom plot, because that is so perfectly described what's going on. Like it is a half-hour sitcom plot, that's making its way as a 90-minute movie.
So with all that, we have one more coming out post The Glut, right? we have one more major 80s body swap comedy, Dream a Little Dream, starring those dreamboats, the two Corys, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. I've not seen this one. Of the four we're talking about, I've not seen this movie, to the point where I wasn't even going to include it. And you're like, well, what about Dream a Little Dream? Randy, the super fan over here, loves the Corys. So,
license to drive, baby.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie. You have, but let's play the trailer for everybody, and we'll dissect it a bit and get into some things. Before we continue, I have to know every one of these. I'd like you to know how similar they are. Every one of these started with like a funk some drum beat, and every one of them has had a narration detailing the plot. I have not watched one yet. Yeah, I'm going to assume it goes 4 for 4, where a narrator. I assume it's going to go 4 for 4, where a narrator has to explain to us what is happening. It's not doing the narrator. It's the two Corys staring at girls in spandex doing aerobics in the 80s.
Oh my God.
Come on. Joel is really crazy about that young lady. You know, he's also a little bit on the edge when it comes to her, you know what I mean?
Bobby was just a normal teenager.
There it is.
You okay? Ask him if he wants a Pop-Tart.
Until he bumped into Lainey and the Ettingers.
This wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh my God. From him.
Now, Bobby has 3 days to find himself.
That's rude, mister.
To pass high school.
I just thought SAT meant Saturday afternoon test.
And steal his best friend's girl.
Well, maybe you're not her type. I'm every girl's type.
Or his future is history.
Thank you for a frightening, confusing, strange, and dangerous time. What more could a girl ask for?
Jason Robards, Corey Feldman, Piper Laurie, Meredith Salinger, Harry Dean Stanton, Corey Haim.
You were expecting maybe Freddy Krueger.
Dream a little dream.
Things I need to know for the listeners.
Oh, man.
Things I need to know for the listeners. The part that I was waiting for before the intro, I kind of described it, was literally just like 45 seconds of Corey Feldman and Corey Haim staring at women doing aerobics, not talking. That's how the trailer opened. The music is these two boys just staring at the girls' asses with no narration of what's going to happen. I was like, this is the trailer. This is the trailer. Then, near the end, a lot of people will know about the friendship between Michael Jackson, Corey Feldman, the discussions there, things. Corey Feldman 100% does a very terrible Michael Jackson cosplay and dance. It looks real rough.
Yeah.
Those are two things I needed to point out that happened in that trailer. Also, that trailer is terrible. And even with the narration, they kind of get into the points that something has happened, but they don't really detail what's going on. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Jason Robards in that. I don't know. It doesn't look funny. It looks like a drama. Like, it doesn't look funny. It doesn't look like a comedy. I don't know what's happening in that trailer.
Yeah, it has that. To call it just an 80s teen movie, I guess is probably the best way to say it. It's where it was those types of, and I'm certainly not comparing it to The Breakfast Club or that type of thing, but it's going for that sort of teen slice of life, but also with weird, whimsical situation. Whimsy's a bad term or a bad description of it. Weird, supernatural. So the idea of this, and I'll get into the body swapping because I guess that's the only way to sort of get into it, because the movie does not seem to care about any sort of cohesion with the plot. Like, it just sort of throws things together. And I would also like to say, well, I have seen this. That does not mean I like it. I just happened to have seen it and was aware of it. And that's why I brought it in with this. But the part they showed in the trailer, you see Jason Robards and I think it's Piper Laurie, who was in Twin Peaks, if anybody remembers from that. They are husband and wife. They are trying to attain this meditative state that if they can sort of make their consciousnesses,
their minds.
Yes, their minds. There you go. If they can meld them together, for lack of a better term, in this meditative state, then essentially they can be together forever. So that is their thought process here.
Because they're older folk, as often happens in this movie, right?
Correct. However, while they are trying this meditative exercise in their backyard, or I guess it's their front yard, really.
The very important detail, Randy. Thank you.
Yes. Well, because you wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Not that it needs to make sense, but the hot girl, Lane or Laney, is riding her bike.
That Corey Feldman is mildly stalking.
Yes. And Corey Feldman is like cutting through the neighborhood, and so, not 5 feet from them doing this meditative exercise, the two of them run into each other, where he runs into a girl on a bike. So from this collision, their minds all sort of transfer together. And now Jason Robards is partially in Corey Feldman's mind. Like it is a very kind of bizarre how.
Okay, so then what? Piper Laurie goes into the girl's mind, so it's actually a double. I didn't realize that.
Yes, so it's like
and the other Corey is the Sean Astin. He's just the friend. The other Corey
is just there. Yeah.
Okay.
To be the, hey man, dude, like
comment on it all.
Kind of what Corey Haim usually did. We're just kind of like look like sideways.
Gotcha.
And what happens is that Jason Robards is like partially in Corey's mind. Then Bobby, who is Corey Feldman's character, ends up going into this dreamlike place, and that's the only place that Jason Robards can talk to Corey Feldman, is in this dreamlike area.
So Corey Feldman is still in the movie as his character, but as a spiritual guide between the realms.
Kind of, but the weird part is because he is this angsty outcast kind of teenager, and he gets bullied and other things like that, he sort of likes the dream-like area where he can just kind of be free of any of his transgressions. Oh, it's really, really, it's why it's a bad movie. It's really convoluted in the plots all over the place. And they, for whatever reason, they have 3 days before the effects are permanent, just to give, I guess, the movie some sort of urgency. I don't know.
Yeah. Otherwise, they can just take whatever.
Boy, by the way, as I'm looking this up, this movie is 114 minutes. Jesus, 2 hours long. Eventually, what happens is that through most of the way these movies work, because of his old school smarts of Jason Robards, he's able to navigate through passing high school, and then Laney, for some reason, doesn't like her boyfriend anymore because he's a bully and revealed to be a nasty guy. And it's as he goes back into the dream and tells him, okay, I'm not able to do this part, and basically convinces Bobby in the dream world to tell him the secret to make this all happen again. And everybody
I'll be real, my eyes glazed over as you were talking about this.
It's kind of how the movie works. Like, dude, it is a very slow moving movie that just kind of seems to be a showcase of Corey Feldman doing whatever he wants, Corey Haim kind of do whatever. It is a jumbled mess. And then I think the reviews spoke to it. I don't know how much money it made, but $5 million at the box office. Yeah, that's probably why.
I would like to note, though, that is not the worst performing of these. We did not say the worst performing of them was 18 Again of all of these films, which only grossed $2.5 million at the box office. I don't have the budget for either one of these films, so I don't know how much they lost. But adjusted for inflation, that means 18 Again only made $6 million, and adjusted for inflation, Dream a Little Dream made $13 million. So there you go. I do have one review I want to talk about, but I actually want to play one more spot. We're talking about how confusing this movie is, right? You're trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Hard.
I read the Roger Ebert review, and the Roger Ebert review leads not with the trailer, but talking about a television spot he found, and I think I found it. So I want us to watch this TV spot together. Then we're going to talk about Roger Ebert's review because he makes some interesting points.
Sir, this is my IOU homework. I owe you homework, sir.
Bobby and Dinger had high school down to a science.
Perfection.
Until Bobby decided to steal Miss Right from Mr. Wrong.
Man, it's a party! Who's got the chips?
Now, one false move, and their history. Jason Robards, Corey Feldman, Piper Laurie, Meredith Salinger, Harry Dean Stanton, Corey Haim.
Hello, honey.
Dream a Little Dream. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Where is body swapping mentioned in the commercial for that at all? Where's the fact that they're not just teenagers dealing with teenager problems mentioned in that commercial at all, anywhere? This is the Roger Ebert review, half star for Dream a Little Dream.
Wow.
And remember, he went out of 4. So worst reviewed of all of these so far, including...
I would love to see how many half-star reviews he has. Usually one is like by default, like you just get one just for making a movie.
So there I was watching this TV commercial for Dream a Little Dream when suddenly a light bulb went on over my head and I said, hang on a minute, because the commercial shows Corey Feldman having all these problems in school, and he's in love with the girl and he's dating the tough kid. What's Bobby going to do? And as I'm watching this commercial, I thought, what happened to Jason Robards? Isn't he in this movie? And then right at the end, it says, yes, he's in it. But what the commercial doesn't tell you is this kid named Bobby isn't a 16-year-old at all. He's he has a teenager's body, but in his head, he is Jason Robards.
Yeah.
And that's right. You got it. This is another one of those never relenting body and mind swap movies in which an old guy winds up inside the head of a teenager, or a teenager becomes a grown-up, or father and son switch places, or a grandfather and a son switch places. It makes you nostalgic for the kind of movie where Chevy Chase is turned into Benji. The studio may have guessed that the public is getting a little tired of these kinds of movies, so in the commercials, they simply don't mention the premise. Just a kid named Bobby with a lot of problems. This is kind of an insult for Jason Robards, but given the way the movie's turned out, he may be happy not to be mentioned. That's how he opens his review. Amazing.
Yeah.
The commercials for, if we're going to rank these, this is Roger Ebert's review. Corey Feldman does not act as if an old guy's inside him. In the acting sweepstakes for mind swap movies, Judge Reinhold is still in first place.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hanks is in second for Big. Roger Ebert wrote that. And Corey Feldman is dead last. You'll like to note, by the way, he did not mention Like Father, Like Son. He's at all in that part. He didn't mention Kirk Cameron or Dudley Moore.
That's rough when you don't even make the list, I guess.
Yeah, but still, that's the movie itself, to put tactfully, is incomprehensible. To cover up the chaos on the screen, the movie has the most obnoxious soundtrack of all time, a group of rock songs that all sound the same, played loudly. Dream a Little Dream is an aggressively unwatchable movie. That's the Roger Ebert review, half star. That's amazing. Obviously, it had already kind of waned. And if that had been a hit, maybe they'd start making more and it would become a subgenre for decades and decades and decades.
They killed it dead.
Yeah. It could have become the BSCU, the Body Swap Cinematic Universe, where all of these people cross over. And now Kirk Cameron's actually body swapping with Fred Savage. And Dudley Moore is going to meet Tom Hanks in Big, even though I say it's not part of that universe. But for this, it would be. And it would have been amazing. No, that killed it dead. What a fascinating moment.
Now I'm thinking, like, we needed a Dudley Moore guest spot on Growing Pains. Oh, how did they not capitalize on that? Maybe competing studios and stuff. I don't know.
So it's fascinating to me, though, that
Judge Reinhold on Wonder Years, like, is just a different.
Oh, that would have been good. That would have been good. What I didn't find in any of these, and what I was hoping to find, was how did this happen, right? Why did this suddenly become the thing that they were going to do in the 80s? And maybe it's because things aren't documented in the 80s the way they were now. Now I feel like as these movies went in production, you would have found every article about every casting, about every moment, about everything online, and I've been able to tell you every reason why everything happened. I can't find that right now. The most I found was an article from The Atlantic that I'm pretty sure is an opinion piece from 2013 that was Reagan-era subtext of Big and late 80s body swapping film boom. 25 years later, the idea of kids working as an adults is an allegory for yuppiedom. And I'm like, oh, maybe I buy that, but that's an opinion piece. I'm not going to go into the actual production of why this happened. But it's fascinating to me. And a lot of this came up again recently because last year, Vince Vaughn put out the movie Freaky, which is the horror movie version of Freaky Friday, which was pretty well received. And so these things keep coming up. There have been, every time you think this genre is dead, it kind of comes back for a little bit. And I'm fascinated. Randy, why do you think, not just in the 80s, why does this stay prevalent? Is it just the concept of seeing the wackiness of these ages and these different viewpoints? Or from a production standpoint, why do they want to keep making these movies every few years? Why does this keep happening in your view?
It's the crossover appeal. There's enough of it that it's like not like kids, but like kids that are a little younger than teenagers, kind of like the concept of seeing something as, I can get away with being an adult as a kid, and then vice versa, the recaptured youth as a whatever 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, on and on and on. So that always, and in both senses, it's attaining what you don't have, but what you perceive to be better than what you do have. And so I think that is a universal kind of thought that still is appealing. So as long as it's framed in an entertaining storyline, that general appeal is pretty easy across the board. It's not something that has to be targeted at a specific audience or a niche or anything like that. That it has a pretty universal appeal of, oh yeah, remember how awesome things were when I was 21? That'd be cool to revisit, or vice versa. If you're, there I did it. That if I'm a 12-year-old, got to be awesome to be able to go out and party and do whatever I want and not have anybody tell me, no, you are restricted.
That makes sense. I like that. That's good. I got nothing to add. I wish I could make fun of you right now. I have nothing. It's a shame. As a moron. No, that was unwarranted. That was just malicious, because everything you just said was very well put. So it's interesting to me just looking at all of this.
It doesn't excuse them making really bad movies, but I see the reason for making more than one, I guess, where they think they can still capitalize. And once one does well, I guess that's the other thing.
But what about the direct-to-video sequel, Dream a Little Dream 2, starring Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Robin Lively, and Stacey Randall?
Oh.
Directed by James Lemo, this film is the sequel to the 1989 film Dream a Little Dream. It is one of the 7 films starring the pair of Bobby Kelly and Dinger each find themselves with a pair of seemingly ordinary sunglasses, but this is no ordinary pair of shades.
Oh my God.
Once two people are wearing the set, one can manipulate the other physically to do whatever their mind wishes to. The set of sunglasses are part of an experiment, and the original owners of the products will stop at nothing to get them back from Bobby and Dinger. Dinger?
Oh.
Dinger? Was he?
Listen, I think it's Dinger. I don't remember.
We're going to look up the trailer. Because here's the thing. Dream a Little Dream 2 trailer. That sounds funny, right? The movie sounds... Do they at some point in the movie have to go, it's weird that this happened again. It's weird that this is happening to us twice. And it's a little different this time. It's weird that this is kind of happening again, don't you think?
I would think so, yeah.
All right, we're going to listen to this trailer. And here we go. Dream a Little Dream 2. My goodness. The worst of the worst is the only one that got a sequel. Directed video.
Wow.
Corey Feldman.
Whoa!
And Corey Haim.
You're not gonna believe this. Sorry.
Who really hit it off in the hit Dream a Little Dream, are hilariously reunited and discover Robin Lively.
I'm not into this kind of a thing.
In Dream a Little Dream 2.
Here we go again. Whoa! What? This is too weird. Oh yeah, pair of sunglasses. Really strange.
Wow.
Major head rush. Nice colors. All right, seems like whoever's wearing one pair will do what the person wearing the other pair wants them to do. Don't make me do anything stupid.
Oh, there's the Michael Jackson impression again. Like full-on dancing sequence.
First, I'm going to teach you how to make love like a man.
I've got this feeling, coming over me. My dream girl. I'm disbelieving, what I think I see.
You know, for a second there, I was actually thinking that you weren't even interested in me. All you wanted was those dumb glasses. What a fool, huh?
If these glasses fall into the wrong hands, something really bad is going to happen.
The entire trailer is built around this Michael Jackson dance number. It's still going. We're intercutting scenes around the Michael Jackson dance number. Jesus.
Oh, run! This is dangerous.
How long is this goddamn trailer?
Limited resources.
$5 million.
It feels like it's been an hour.
However, one proviso. I get to wear those glasses, and you wear these.
Dream a Little Dream 2. some dreams you just never want to end.
Thoughts?
No.
The entire premise this time is there's essentially like mind-controlling sunglasses, right?
Right.
You can force someone to do something, and there's a weird amount of sex jokes going on in that for something that's mind-controlled. And like I said, I don't watch a lot of Always Sunny, but I instantly thought of this.
I think I am. Yeah, you are. Because if the girl said no, then the answer obviously is no.
No.
But the thing is she's not gonna say no. She would never say no because of the implication.
That's all I could think of that entire trailer.
Yeah.
That's all I could think of. The entire trailer was
Dennis and Dennis now
of,
and Dream a Little Dream too. Yeah.
It's because of the implication. So as soon as they were like, I have to do anything. Oh, you get on the bed. Oh, no. No.
No.
So anyway, what a great note to end on. Dream a Little Dream 2. And, there's nothing like ending a podcast on the jokes of the implication because it makes me feel comfortable. I'm sure it makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But you know what's not implied? You leaving us 5 stars and leaving us positive reviews anywhere you're listening to this podcast.
Yes.
Be it Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen.
10 times as many stars as Roger Ebert gave Dream a Little Dream. Give us that.
Yes. Oh my God. Ooh, Roger Ebert was alive during Dream a Little Dream 2. Did he review it?
It was direct-to-video. I would be surprised. I don't know. What would he give it? A quarter star? -2 stars? Like,
no, he didn't do it.
Oh.
Damn it. Oh, well. Dang it. But anyway, leave us those positive reviews anywhere you listen to this podcast. Engage with us. Give us your love, please. We need it. We're desperate. We also just like hearing from you. If you do have any criticisms, shoot us an email. Mike Barcode. That's MikeBarcode @gmail.com. If you just want to talk to us, ask questions, if you have disagreements, if you love Dream a Little Dream, if you're in Dream a Little Dream 2 and you love it and you want to yell at us, you give us an email right there.
Please.
Also, you can find me, that's Mike Barcode, on Instagram and TikTok of the same name. I have started a Wait Are These Guys Friends Insta channel, Wait Are These Guys Friends Pod. I need to update it more. I haven't been doing a lot, but you can find us there and connect us with there if you want to find anything or say anything. Randy, any final thoughts, or are we just saying goodbye?
I think that about covers it. As much body swapping discussion that could be had. So on that note, I will say goodbye, everybody, and thanks for listening.
You may have seen, like he said that differently. It's because I'm actually Randy, and that's Mike. So as Randy, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody.